So we want a button to do this thing. Here's a room that actually has some stuff in it. So if you look at Slack, if there's already some there, you can just hover over them. Otherwise, you have to, or you can go here. But if there aren't any there yet, you have to go to the upper right here. So I am okay with just putting a button that's kind of floating to the right of the message. Over here. All right. Terrence, this is becoming a distraction. All right. Let's make this button. So this is going to be in message.js. So in message.js, we have this big old div. Inside the div, we have the avatar, and then we have the div that contains everything else. Let's put the little button that brings up the menu on the far right of everything else. So I'll add a button right here. And in this button, I'll put a little smiley. So let's go out to our dear friend Font Awesome. Let's find a smile. Here we are. Copy that in here. Don't forget, class name, not class, right?
What made you choose to put the button inside of details instead of like message?
Instead of just outside of that. The way I intend to style it, I think it's going to be easier. It's probably not going to make, actually, it's probably not going to make much difference. 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Yeah. Maybe it should go outside details. But I did it this way this morning, and it's fine, so yeah. So right now it's here, and it looks real bad. So as always, I'm going to obsess over the way it looks. We are not yet using Aphrodite in here. I think I'm going to want some hover effects, so I better use it. So I'll import Aphrodite, style sheet, and CSS. So my styles down here, I'll now say stylesheet.create. And then instead of style equals, I'll need to make these classes and use this CSS helper method. So class name, instead of just message, I need to make this a template string. I will leave message in there. And then I'll put CSS parentheses styles.message. Then I don't need this style prop. Whoops, I deleted too many curly braces. Okay. Styles.details. I don't think I need a class name of details here. I probably just need CSS styles.details. All right, cool. Now I need a new style for my button. My button's going to have an on-click eventually. So I'll have class name equals CSS styles dot reaction button or something like that. So let's make reaction button. Put my commas in there. I want to debuttonify it, so border 0, outline 0, background color transparent. Autocomplete, sometimes you get in my way. Transparent, padding 0. It's probably gonna, it's too doggone small right now, so font size 1 rem should be fine. Let's have a look at that. Okay, there it is. Now it's not in the right place, and that's a little dark too. So I'll lighten it up. Let's make it kind of a medium gray. Let's make the cursor a pointer, or the cursor. The cursor a pointer. Yeah. Probably going to give it a little hover thing here. Probably make it black when I hover. Or no, let's make it blue. Let's make it a nice pretty blue like 3366FF. Yeah. And I want it over here somewhere. I'm going to use positioning to do that. Absolute positioning. So I'll say position, absolute. And I want it almost all the way to the right and all the way to the top, but I'll leave a little bit of room there. So I'll say top 0.5 rim, right 0.5 rim.
What is absolute mean?
I'll explain positioning a little more in just a second. So there we go. There we go, and it's right at the very top of the page, just like I wanted, right? All of them on top of each other. Not quite what I meant. So positioning lets you position it relative. See, even absolute positioning is actually relative, so it's kind of a silly name. You can position it like relative to the boundaries of, well, not its immediate container, but its first ancestor that is also positioned some way other than the default. So it'll look at its parents and find one that is either position absolute or position relative, and the numbers I put in for top and right or left and bottom or whatever I do is going to be relative to that. So if we just make the message itself positioned, if I do position relative, that's going to leave it right where it is, the same place it would be if it weren't positioned at all. But now it is relatively positioned, and the absolute here will be relative to that. So the difference between relative and absolute position, if I remember correctly, is that relatively positioned stuff is still part of the flow of the page, and absolute position stuff is not. Absolute positioning takes it clear out of the flow of the page, so nothing else is going to make room for it, if that makes sense. Let me make sure that's true. CSS relative position. I almost always use absolute if I use it, so absolute positioned relative to the nearest positioned ancestor instead of positioned relative to the viewport like fixed. Yeah, but what about relative? Relative. Relative to its normal position. That's right. That's right. Other content will not be adjusted to fit any gap left by the element. So relative is relative to where it would be on the page if you didn't tell it to position it anywhere. So that's why I can say just relative position, and it'll still be in the same place on the page that it would be otherwise. But I could say left or right or whatever, and it would be relative to its normal position on the page. Absolute is relative to the position of its nearest ancestor that is also positioned. So I want it in the top right of the message. So here it is. It put it where I wanted it, basically. Cool. Doesn't do anything yet, but by golly, the button is there, and the button is styled. So progress. We have a nice, handsome button. Add and style non-working reaction button. Then we need to make it show and hide a picker.